Megaton, a site that began as a gigantic crater left by a plane wreck that was carrying a megaton-class atomic bomb. This, of course, is how the town got its name. Not long after the crash, several wasteland survivors tried to gain entry into Vault 101 while huddling down in the nearby crater, since it provided shelter from the dust storms and other dangers. When things began to settle down, some people left and began to wander the wasteland. Those people then eventually returned to trade with the remaining settlers. As a result, Megaton had become a full-on trading center. Megaton continued to grow and expand, eventually reaching around 42 inhabitants. However, raids by gangs and supermutants became an issue. Manya Vargas is currently one of Megaton's longest living citizens, and it was her father that convinced the other settlers to construct their homes in the crater using aircraft debris and scraps from the nearby airport. Everything had been scavenged from the airport by the Wastelanders, and all that remained were the planes, which were then used in the construction of Megaton, and as a result, the airport no longer remains. Megaton's construction was aided significantly by the children of Adam, who had just begun to worship the undetonated atomic bomb in the town center. The settlers were forced to leave the bomb untouched in exchange for their much-needed help. As years went by, Megaton remained a stable settlement. In February of 2241, the Vault 101 expeditionary party sent by the second overseer and led by Ann Palmer made contact with the residents of Megaton. Initially, the locals were cautious of the strangers, but eventually they were accepted and welcomed into the settlement. Palmer appointed 2 Vault residents, Agnes Taylor and Lewis, as Vault ambassadors to Megaton, who remained in the town to further study the surrounding environments before eventually returning to the Vault. This was the expedition that was documented and archived in the Vault 101 Overseer's terminal in his office. During the same year, a group of raiders attacked the town, resulting in the death of 14-year-old Colin Moriarty's father. After the raid, Moriarty inherited his father's wealth and his bar, Moriarty's Saloon. Many residents of Megaton came from the surrounding areas and weren't originally born there. The Stahl family came from the north. Moira Brown came from Canterbury Commons, which is the main source of Megaton's food and supplies, and Doc Church came from Rivet City. By 2227, Megaton was still a large settlement and trading center, but still faced common wasteland threats. The gang of raiders who had been occupying Springvale Elementary School launched a raid on Megaton. A group, led by Bopo, staged the raid, but the attack ended abruptly when Bopo was shot in the head and killed by the town's sheriff, Lucas Sims. Bopo's successor recognized the folly of the raid on Megaton and instead began attempts tunneling into Vault 101. Around 2267, a girl from Vault 101 stumbled into Megaton and had Moira Brown armor her Vault jumpsuit for her. Moriarty claims to have met an escaped Vault dweller in 2272. Your father James, Star Paladin Cross, and yourself as an infant visited Megaton in 2258 on their way to Vault 101 and stayed in Moriarty's saloon. 19 years later, James escapes Vault 101 and returned to Megaton to speak with Colin Moriarty. The lone wanderer, as an adult, entered the town in search of their father. It is here that you encounter several worldly options depending on the type of player or person you want to portray. You can find a variety of side quests and charismatic NPCs that immerse you further into the desolate world. You can even go as far as arming the nuke and ending the existence of Megaton as we know it, or disarm the atomic bomb where Megaton would slowly rise to great fame throughout the country, instantly putting it on the map. By 2297, it would then become the hub of the Wasteland Survival Guide distribution. The real-life location of Megaton isn't that difficult to determine. We're currently in the middle of a very populated area called Tyson's Corner in Virginia. And while one could argue that Tyson's Corner in its entirety could be Megaton simply because there is a megaton of things here, Megaton in Fallout 3 simply isn't as big in comparison. For that reason, I disregard that idea and take a closer and more precise look within Tyson's Corner. In-game, Megaton is located directly south of Springvale Elementary School. So, if we trace a path directly south from Spring Hill Elementary, we find ourselves standing in a place that could be a good location for its reference. In doing so, we find ourselves here at the Lillian Court, where we are surrounded by large buildings which appear to be apartments or condominiums with possibly a few places to eat or shop below. The positioning of the buildings surround its center, which could mimic the general shape of Megaton, but this area doesn't fully have me convinced as the best location. So I scrapped this idea for being our best choice as Megaton. Luckily, we don't have to look far for where Megaton could be. Although it's not exactly south of the elementary school, it's rather close. In fact, just across the street is another location known as the Rotunda Condominiums, which has buildings that wrap around as if it were built in and around a crater. More importantly, it's actually a gated community, which is more of the deciding factor for me. The area has a lot of accommodations for a community, such as a pool, recreation center, and more, but the comparing points with Megaton is that it has living quarters, businesses, is surrounded by fence and wall to protect its inhabitants within. It's so well protected, I can't even get in without a proper reason or address. For those reasons, I believe the Rotunda Condominiums is the best possible location to represent Megaton. One thing I wanted to investigate a little bit further was the airport or the aircraft used in the construction of Megaton. We know that through the lore of the game that the airport no longer remains, so finding any information in-game or online has proven extremely difficult. However, now knowing the real-life location of where Megaton would be, we can look at the real-life map and see that this area is surrounded by airports. 3 in particular stand out to me the most: Reagan National, Davidson AAF, and Dulles International Airport. However, we know that the game only mentions one airport, so if I had to choose my pick, I would choose Dulles International Airport simply because it's the biggest of the 3. As far as the airport no longer existing in-game, my guess is that it got nuked during the war, and all that was left were the scattered remains of the aircraft in the airfields around it. Making the connections of a fictional video game with an alternate timeline that uses real life as reference can be challenging at times. As you have briefly seen and will continue to see on our ventures, some locations will be clear while others may not be. For this reason, we'll have to pay attention to detail, our surroundings, and the lay of the land. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Though this series is not on a regular schedule, please do me the favor of subscribing, hitting that notification button for future channel releases, dropping a like, and letting me know your thoughts in the comments field below. Be sure to also follow me on Twitter and join my Discord for a closer look into my content and a community experience. I appreciate all your support. Thanks for watching. Be safe in the wasteland, and I'll see you at our next location.